The Pleistocene, or better known as the Ice Age, was one of the most extreme and fascinating periods in the history of our planet. Great sheets of ice advanced and retreated over entire continents. The seas dropped hundreds of meters, and vast regions transformed into tundras, frozen steppes and open forests, where survival was not a right. It was a daily conquest. We are talking about a wild law that prevailed from the enormous plains, glacial zones, and fragmented forests of America to the cold steppes of the Iberian Peninsula and Siberia, which united Europe and Asia in an ocean of frozen grasslands. This colossal scenario gave rise to an era of giants, both prey and predators. Cats with impossible fangs, bears that surpassed any modern reference, birds of prey capable of bringing down prey larger than themselves, and colossal abyssal hunters competed for dominance in a world where strength, speed, and strategy marked the difference between surviving or becoming extinct. Today, we bring you 15 of the most lethal predators of the Arctic Age, which ruled sky, sea, and land. Many of them would not only make modern hypercarnivores look like simple defenseless cubs, but it is also possible that they directly competed with our ancestors for their place in the world. Haast's eagle, or Heritis moor. Let us begin with the kings of the sky, large birds that not only had to ride icy winds, but also had to hunt enormous prey. In the territory of primitive New Zealand, we can find an excellent example of this dynamic, with a hunting bird whose favorite prey were terrestrial birds that easily doubled its size. We are talking about a bird that was capable of descending from the skies at more than 80 kilometers per second, capturing its prey and disappearing into the horizon. Leaving as the only trace the desperate howl of its victims. This great predator is known as the Haast's eagle. Its wings were relatively short for its size, but its structure was reinforced by powerful flight muscles and strong legs that gave it stability when attacking. The wingspan of Heritis reached between 2.6 and 3 meters, while the weight varied between 15 and 17 kilos, with the females being somewhat larger than the males. If we had to choose an appropriate subject of comparison, its scale made it 30 or 40% larger than the modern harpy eagle, and its tail completed its configuration. Reaching up to half a meter in length, it helped it maintain balance during rapid maneuvers in forested spaces. Its beak was a tool as precise as its claws. In fact, its skull resembled that of a vulture, while certain characteristics recalled the Andean condor. These adaptations allowed it to penetrate tissues and access internal organs of large prey or carcasses. On the other hand, its claws were curved and pointed, designed to withstand very high tensions without breaking. The combined force of the claws and the beak made it possible to subdue and kill its prey quickly and efficiently. All of the above makes sense if we take into account that its favorite prey was the giant moa, a terrestrial bird that could measure 3 meters and weigh around 200 kilograms. In addition, considering that its wings were not too large, possibly because it hunted and scavenged in forested areas, its long tail would give it the additional lift it would need to actively prey. As for hunting, this predator used a simple and efficient strategy to plunge toward its victim at the highest possible speed. Researchers calculated that its diving speed of 80 kilometers per second could emulate that of a block of concrete falling with the sole objective of killing. And taking into account the prominence of its claws, scientists have theorized that its main tactic consisted of subduing with one leg and stabbing both with the other and with its sharp beak. Unfortunately, not much is known about other behaviors it may have had, but researchers believe that its habits were mostly linked to hunting and scavenging. After all, the Haast had no natural predators, which did not force in this species any type of special adaptation or preservation habit. Its eyesight was quite poor compared to modern eagles, and it also lacked some olfactory capabilities typical of vultures. In any other species of eagle, a mediocre adaptation would have been the cause of its decline, but Haearietus moorii was able to survive almost until our days. The key to this was its isolation in a natural environment without major ecological changes such as the archipelagos of New Zealand. The giant moa were basically livestock for the eagles, which occupied the same niche as apex predators of their biome. A study estimated that the total population of the Haast's eagle could have reached between 3,000 and 4,500 breeding pairs. Although this would change around the year 1200, with the appearance of the Polynesian navigators. The intensive hunting of terrestrial birds by humans drastically changed the ecosystem. When their main prey disappeared, the Haast's eagle not only lost its source of food, but it was the next to be hunted. This chain of events caused the species to become extinct around the year 1400, almost at the same pace as the moa. Giant Cuban owl, or Ornimegalonyx otteroi. In Pleistocene Cuba, the night was not an empty space, but a territory dominated by a precise and constant hunter. Among the forests, savannas, and rocky areas of the island, a large bird patrolled the landscape with low, silent flight, attentive to any movement on the ground. Its activity began at sunset and extended for hours, using the darkness as an ally to surprise its prey. It was a gigantic owl with long legs, a robust body, and talons designed to immobilize large animals. This nocturnal predator, unique in its type within the Ice Age Caribbean, was Ornimegalonyx otteroi, the largest known owl. Its size broke the traditional image of an owl. It reached about 1.10 meters in height and could weigh around 30 kilos, with females larger than males. It had long legs, a robust body, and probably a short tail. In proportions, it resembles the modern small burrowing owl, a species closely tied to the ground. However, the comparison ends there. The Cuban owl was much more robust, and its size placed it above many offspring of the mega herbivores of its environment, which would eventually become part of its diet. Its wings were relatively short, suggesting that it was not designed to cover long distances in the air. Rather, its flight would have been brief and low, adapted to forested spaces. Some specialists propose that Ornimegalonyx glided among the trees, while others consider that it relied more on terrestrial movement. Its long legs and strong constitution support this idea. In addition, the keel of the sternum was reduced, a key structure for anchoring the flight muscles in fully flying birds. This indicates that, like a modern wild turkey, it probably only took flight when necessary to attack or escape. Flying or not, the lethality of its talons was impossible to ignore for any terrestrial mammal encountering it head-on. These were its main means of subduing and finishing off its victims. Its fossil remains do not show behaviors typical of scavengers like vultures, so it did not develop a beak for efficiently gutting or extracting entrails. The trick, then, must have been the same that its living counterparts used to hunt, a strategy of leaping and ambushing from elevated perches over its prey, spreading its wings just before reaching its target. With its weight and powerful talons, it could crush and inflict lethal wounds on almost any herbivore before they could defend themselves or flee. Although many of its fossils have been discovered in caves, there is no evidence that they regularly used these refuges or even shared hunting habits with other members of their species, except for female and offspring family groups. It is very likely they were solitary predators and recurring prey for other carnivores. Researchers have established that among its prey were capromes, geocapromes, and macrocapromes, rodents the size of a canid. Even more impressive, they were capable of including terrestrial sloths in their menu, some the size of American bears. While it achieved very impressive feats, climate change caused by melting and the appearance of primitive humans in its territory led Ornimegalonyx to extinction approximately 8 to 10,000 years ago. Giant Pleistocene condor, or Gymnogyps amplus. From great heights, the giant condor descended slowly, guided by sight and smell, in search of an opportunity among the remains of the megafauna that dominated the landscape. Its presence indicated that, at some point, death had already done its work. After all, we are talking about one of the largest aerial scavengers in the history of America. It is important to clarify that, no matter how sinister the description of this colossal vulture seems, it played a key role in cleaning the ecosystem and recycling nutrients. Gymnogyps amplus was able to assert itself in Ice Age banquets as the largest known vulture of the Pleistocene. The structure of its skeleton confirms this vocation. As a member of the Cathartidae family, it had long, broad wings designed to glide efficiently for hours. Like modern condors, it probably had a mostly bare head and neck, an adaptation that facilitates hygiene when entering decomposing body cavities. The bony frame not only favored prolonged gliding, but also firm locomotion on land, while moving around corpses to feed. Estimates based on fossil remains indicate a wingspan that could reach just over 3 meters, and a weight ranging from 15 to slightly over 20 kilos. In comparative terms, it comfortably surpassed the modern California condor and was about 1/3 larger. This difference was not merely a scale excess, it allowed it to manipulate and tear the flesh of colossal animals without relying on other scavengers. Its legs and beak, although practically lethal due to their large dimensions, were not intended to end lives, but to gut and tear flesh from animals with ease. Findings in ancient Grand Canyon nests provide concrete clues about its diet. These deposits contain bone fragments of mammoths, horses, mountain goats, and even condor remains. Many of these bones show signs of having passed through a highly acidic digestive system, present in decaying meat. Its foraging strategy probably combined keen eyesight with high-altitude patrols over extensive, open areas. The wide distribution of fossils in western North America suggests that it traveled great distances using ascending air currents. From there, it detected corpses, either by direct visual signals or by the activity of other scavengers on the ground. There is also evidence that, although its diet focused on terrestrial herbivores from wooded or shrubby environments, it could occasionally exploit coastal resources, including marine mammal remains. Regarding the reproductive life of Gymnogyps amplus, behavior similar to the California condor is inferred. Pleistocene deposits in the Grand Canyon show nesting areas on rocky ledges and caves, with deep substrates indicating repeated use over generations. This points to monogamous pairs returning to the same sites year after year. The accumulation of food remains in these nests not only reveals their diet, but also prolonged territorial fidelity. The most recent records of Gymnogyps amplus date between 10,000 and 9,000 years ago. Some remains come from the Rancho La Brea tar pits in California and are after the disappearance of several megafauna species. Its scavenger nature may have given it some advantage against immediate extinction. By not depending on a single live prey and not being a direct target of intensive hunting, it was able to persist longer than other Pleistocene giants. Giant Australian eagle, or Dinatowaitus gaffae. In Pleistocene Tasmania, the wind swept across open plains and mountain slopes without encountering many obstacles. There, over gales rising from the valleys, a broad silhouette traced slow circles while carefully scanning the ground. Unlike the condor, this one was not looking for carrion, but for living movement to hunt. That dominant figure was Dinatowaitus gaffae. Unlike other giant raptors adapted to forested environments, its design favored open spaces. It was larger and more robust than the modern wedge-tailed eagle, and its combination of wide wings and compact body made it a predator specialized in plains. Fossil estimates indicate a wingspan close to 3 meters and a weight ranging between 12 and 18 kilos. With these proportions, it ranked among the largest known birds of prey, not only in Australia, but in the world. Analysis of its remains reveals an anatomy built for strength. The sternum and wing bones show broad surfaces for muscle attachment, suggesting powerful musculature capable of supporting rapid and controlled descents. Compared to other extreme gliders that prioritize long, narrow wings to cover vast distances, Dinatoides had relatively short and wide wing elements. This configuration sacrifices some efficiency over long distances but increases power and control in sudden maneuvers. In other words, it was better equipped for attacking than for wandering indefinitely. Its legs reinforce this reading. They were robust, comparable in proportion to those of large modern eagles such as the Philippine eagle, though on a larger scale. The talons, estimated around 30 centimeters following the curvature, were not designed to hold small prey, but to penetrate and grasp bulky bodies. This suggests that natural selection guided it to kill large prey, perhaps much heavier than itself. If we were to make an imaginative exercise very close to reality, this apex predator would be the equivalent of a lion in the Australian skies. Hypotheses about its diet also fit this profile. In Pleistocene Australia, large marsupials inhabited the landscape, including giant, short-faced kangaroos and the imposing Diprotodon. Dinatoides likely focused on juveniles, sick, or temporarily isolated individuals. For these prey, its hunting process was simple. Descend from great heights to strike in a single impact using speed, body weight, and the power of its talons. The initial blow would not only capture but completely destabilize prey several times heavier. In the best-case scenario, it could fracture bones and cause immediate collapse. That's when it would begin feeding on its prey, alive or not. Regarding its social behavior, there are few certainties. No colonies or concentrations suggesting group life have been found, so a solitary and territorial style is inferred, especially against smaller raptors. Its nesting habits are also not precisely known. However, by analogy with modern species of the genus Aquila, it is reasonable to imagine nests in robust trees or rocky ledges, located at strategic points with good visibility of the surroundings. And like all megapredators, the fate of Dinatoides gaffei was tied to that of Australian megafauna. Fossil records place its last appearances between about 65,000 and 40,000 years ago, a period coinciding with the disappearance of large herbivores like Diprotodon. As those prey went extinct, whether due to climate changes, human pressure, or a combination of factors, the great eagle's food supply diminished until it became unsustainable. Giant American stork, or Ciconia liddeckeri. Not all large predators are bloodthirsty beasts, a thesis defended by Ciconia liddeckeri during the harsh Ice Age. In the vast plains and wetlands of the Pleistocene, where overflowing rivers and open prairies defined the landscape, its tall and slender silhouette moved across the terrain. Every step was measured, and every pause was a hunting opportunity. The giant American stork used its long legs, neck, and beak to capture considerable-sized prey. Its strategy combined patience, observation, and quick strikes, allowing it to hunt large fish, amphibians, reptiles, and small mammals. Its silhouette, taller than many modern humans, dominated the edges of lagoons and estuaries. Fossil-based estimates indicate it was clearly larger than modern storks. A revealing fact is the distal width of the tarsometatarsus, approximately 45% greater than in living species of the genus Ciconia. This difference is significant, as it implies longer and stronger legs, capable of perfectly balancing its weight while moving through soft or flooded terrain. Of course, its build was not as robust as birds, specialized in capturing prey by brute force. The shafts of its tibia and femur have narrower and less massive contours than those of large raptors. This suggests that, instead of swooping from the air with devastating impact, Ciconia lydekeri was adapted for prolonged wading and capturing with minimal movements. As for its external appearance, it is reasonable to imagine it similar to modern storks. It probably had light-colored body plumage and dark flight feathers, with possible iridescent shine on the wings, traits common in the genus. There is no clear evidence of marked sexual dimorphism, so males and females would have been very similar in size and appearance. The main difference from its living relatives was scale. Standing upright on the shore, it would be like encountering a stork able to look many mega-herbivores almost eye to eye. Its diet reflected the diversity of Pleistocene wetland ecosystems. It shared its environment with semi-aquatic rodents like Myocastor coipus and Holochilus brasiliensis, as well as large fish, bulky amphibians, and medium-sized reptiles. From its elevated position, it could detect vibrations or movements under the murky surface. Then, its long, flexible neck functioned as a spring mechanism. In a fraction of a second, it could thrust its beak forward and snatch prey before it reacted. In addition, its long legs not only allowed it to remain stable in shallow waters, but also to advance quickly on solid ground. If a small mammal tried to flee among riparian vegetation, the stork could chase it in long strides until cornering it. This combination of patience, height, and targeted speed made Ciconia lydekeri an effective predator without resorting to the spectacular violence associated with other Pleistocene giants. Beyond its predatory capacity, it is assumed to have nested in trees near bodies of water, as many modern storks do. The wide distribution of its fossils in different regions of America indicates good flight capability, sufficient to move between seasonal wetlands when conditions changed. Its disappearance is placed toward the end of the Pleistocene, or the beginning of the Holocene. Climate changes altered rainfall patterns and wetland extent, while the transformation of faunal communities affected prey availability. Human expansion on the continent may have added to this. Although no definitive cause is proven, the combination of environmental changes and ecological pressure was enough for this peaceful predator to vanish. Giant primitive orca, or Orcanus paleorca. The colossi of the Pleistocene were not limited to leaving their mark on land. There were also giants that roamed lakes, rivers, and seas. In these territories, large predators, like the giant primitive orca, developed hydrodynamic bodies, powerful jaws, and highly developed senses to hunt and survive. This species helps us understand how the lineage of modern orcas was consolidated. In a period marked by climate fluctuations and changes in marine ecosystems, the paleorca was part of the cetaceans that occupied high positions in the food chain, foreshadowing the dominance that the genus Orcinus maintains in today's oceans. Unfortunately, estimates of its size are not necessarily conservative. The available remains, mostly from the Boso Peninsula in Japan, consist of dental material and cranial fragments. Based on comparison with the modern orca, adult females may have measured between 5 and nearly 8 meters, while males could have reached lengths close to 10 meters. These figures place it in a range comparable to the largest modern orcas. Its teeth would have been similar to modern species in size and robustness, suggesting a bite force equivalent to, or even greater proportionally to, the skull. Another important point is that its dental morphology provides significant clues about its diet. Relatively narrow crowns favor the concentration of pressure at the contact point, making it easier to tear flesh and penetrate tough tissues. Of course, it is believed that the hidden purpose behind this dental design was to pierce cartilage and bones, crushing its prey with each bite. And the worst part is that if the pack hunting strategy of modern orcas is inherited from the Paleorca, we are talking about dozens of fangs ready to tear apart entire marine megafauna. In the same deposits where its fossils have been found, there are remains of toothed whales, pinnipeds, sirenians, and ancestors of the great white shark. Although there is no direct evidence that all were regular prey, the ecological context suggests it coexisted with a diverse marine megafauna. The absence of clearly superior predators in these records places it among the main regulators of the ecosystem. More than competing for leftovers, it likely actively contested resources with other large marine carnivores. Unfortunately, it is also unknown whether it maintained any social pod structure like modern orcas. If so, the oldest and most experienced female, matriarch and caretaker of the young, would have guided the hunts. Some experts dismiss the idea of a pod because modern orcas developed migratory capabilities that do not seem to have been part of the Paleorca's habits. However, the fossil record of this species is restricted to the Middle Pleistocene of Japan, and there are no reliable reports in more recent strata. This suggests that its particular lineage disappeared before the end of the Ice Age. Changes in ocean currents, water temperature variations, and shifts in prey distribution may have disrupted the balance that sustained this great cetacean. When primary resources decline or migrate, even a multi-meter predator becomes vulnerable. Giant walrus, or Ontocetus. In the temperate and subtropical seas of the Pleistocene, a mammal swam that, at least in appearance, evoked the famous terrestrial saber-tooths. It did not move with the agility of a feline, nor did it need to ambush on land. Its arena was coastal waters, where visibility changed with currents, and the seabed offered shelter for fish and mollusks. There, Ontocetus, the so-called giant walrus, imposed its presence. Estimates indicate it could measure between 4 and 5 meters in length and reach a weight close to 800 or even 1,000 kilograms. Compared to modern walruses, it would have been at least a fifth larger, although the exact mass is still debated due to the fragmentary nature of the fossil record. Its most evident feature was its curved tusks, ranging from just over 30 to nearly 50 centimeters. Although slightly shorter than some modern walruses, they stood out for their robustness and thickness, suggesting remarkable resistance to impacts or confrontations. Ontocetus had an elongated muscular body. The long webbed front flippers acted as powerful oars, capable of generating brief but energetic thrusts. The rear flippers provided stability and direction, refining each turn in shallow waters. This combination not only favored prey capture, but also active defense of breeding territories in coastal zones. The skull reveals another essential part of its biology. It was robust with wide jaws, capable of opening forcefully and holding prey firmly. The anterior teeth, conical and slightly curved, were well adapted for gripping slippery fish or escaping squid. Although it did not use its long tusks for hunting like terrestrial saber-tooths, it didn't really need to. Its anatomy suggests a different strategy. The hard palate had a slight arched depression, and the mandibular edges showed a lateral curvature that expanded the oral cavity. In simple terms, this allowed the tongue to function like a piston, moving back and forth to generate suction. This way, it could extract prey from the seabed, draw hidden organisms from sediments, and feed on other prey, similar to some modern marine mammals. Although modern walruses are mostly associated with clam consumption, Ontocetus seems to have had a more varied diet, with fish and squid as common components. When it detected prey at close range, it could propel itself with a quick flipper stroke. It was not built for prolonged chases, but these bursts of speed were sufficient to capture an animal's, before they could hide among rocks or underwater vegetation. This hunting strategy was repeated across all habitats where it lived, according to fossils found from California to Peru and Mexico, mostly in coastal waters, estuaries, and bays, with relatively shallow bottoms. Socially, the tusks probably played a starring role. Besides serving as a deterrent against rivals, they may have acted as visual signals in reproductive contexts. Their relatively shorter length, combined with greater thickness, also made them suitable for inflicting severe injuries in direct confrontations. They likely also functioned as support when feeding by suction, helping stabilize the body relative to the seabed. Ontocetus disappeared toward the end of the Pleistocene. Changes in ocean currents and global cooling altered the distribution of coastal habitats and prey. The expansion of ice sheets and modification of shallow platforms reduced key areas for feeding and reproduction. Without access to these strategic spaces, even a 5-meter pinniped was exposed to irreversible decline. Quincana. The great predators were not limited to the vast expanses of the ocean. Even the smallest rivers of the Ice Age could hide true monsters. The Quincana was that unpleasant secret that unsuspecting megafauna discovered when approaching the rivers of primitive Australia. Alongside beasts like Megalania and the marsupial lion, this crocodile was a top predator that could basically include any kind of animal in its diet. The absence of complete skeletons makes it impossible to determine its exact size, but most estimates place it at least 6 meters in length. Its weight, calculated conservatively, would have been around 200 kilograms, although some researchers consider it possible that it was larger. More revealing than the number is its anatomy. The skull was tall and deep, very different from the flattened snout of modern crocodiles. This has allowed theorists to suggest that it had a bite oriented toward cutting, not just capturing. The limbs provide another key piece of information. They are believed to have been more robust and relatively longer than those of modern crocodiles, especially the hind limbs. The morphology of the tail, stiffer, seems suitable for maintaining balance during rapid movement on land. Altogether, these traits point to an animal with well-developed terrestrial abilities. It was not simply an aquatic ambusher that occasionally came to the shore, but a predator capable of chasing panicked prey across the surface. The dentition confirms the previous interpretation. Quincana had xiphidont teeth, laterally compressed and serrated on both the front and rear edges. Instead of crushing, they were designed to cut and tear. The proportions of the cross-section, longer than wide, and the density of serrations along the edges reinforce the idea of a specialization in producing deep, bleeding wounds. This type of dentition appears in other terrestrial crocodiliforms and represents a convergence toward more active predatory strategies. Its hunting method would have differed from the classic grab-and-drown technique associated with modern crocodiles. Instead of dragging prey into the water to suffocate it, it could inflict cutting bites designed to weaken it quickly. In large animals, a severe wound could cause significant bleeding, even if the victim initially managed to escape. This tactic is somewhat consistent with an environment where megafauna was abundant. Possible prey included animals like Diprotodon optatum, the largest known marsupial, as well as giant short-faced kangaroos, turtles, and large birds. It is important to note that it shared its ecosystem and prey with other formidable predators, such as the marsupial lion and large monitor lizards. Although there is no direct evidence of confrontations between them, it is reasonable to assume competition for resources and territory. However, the ability to alternate between aquatic and terrestrial environments gave it a strategic advantage, as it reduced dependence on a single hunting ground. Its reign of terror is estimated to have begun declining in the late Pleistocene due to brutal climate change. The progressive disappearance of megafauna reduced the availability of large prey, and the alteration of river habitats may have affected its breeding and hunting areas. With the fall of the giant herbivores and the reconfiguration of Australian ecosystems, this terrestrial crocodile lost the context that had favored its specialization. Without large bodies to chase or stable riverbanks to dominate, all the Quincana could do was go extinct. Madagascar crocodile, or Voay robustus. Quincana was not the only reptilian hypercarnivore that made herbivores tremble when approaching a water source. In inhospitable and primitive Madagascar, another robust crocodile occupied the shallow waters and muddy banks. It remained motionless for hours, with only its eyes and nostrils visible above the surface, until the moment to hunt arrived. The extinct Voay demonstrated that one does not need to be a giant to be an efficient predator. With an estimated length close to 5 meters and an approximate weight of 170 kilograms, it was not the largest crocodile of its time, but it was one of the most distinctive. Its skull featured a characteristic that clearly distinguished it from modern crocodiles: horn-like bony projections. In addition to this distinctive trait of the genus Voay, its face was shorter and wider than that of the Nile crocodile, giving it a more compact and solid profile. The cranial architecture reinforces this impression. The jaws were deep and supported a wide snout with a vaulted palate, a configuration that increased structural resistance to torsion and pressure. Functionally, this suggests a powerful and sustained bite, suitable for holding prey that struggles. The robust, well-implanted dentition completes the picture of an animal prepared to grip firmly before tearing, unlike the bloodthirsty Quincana. Its diet seems to have been broad and opportunistic. As a generalist predator, it fed on fish, birds, and mammals, small or medium-sized, that inhabited the Malagasy wetlands. This strategy resembles that of the modern Nile crocodile, which exploits almost any available resource in aquatic and semi-aquatic environments. However, the fossil evidence adds a relevant nuance. Bite marks have been identified on the bones of Paleopropithecus maximus, a type of giant lemur, exceeding 30 kilograms. These marks indicate that Voay robustus also ambushed larger terrestrial vertebrates when they approached lakes and swamps. Similar to Quincana, evolution explored with the Voay the path of dual specialization, with adaptations for a lifestyle less dependent on water. Its broad paratympanic sinuses, associated with cranial structure, have been interpreted as part of a set of traits favoring a flexible life between water and adjacent land. Even so, it likely maintained a strong connection with riverbanks during reproduction. Like its modern relatives, it would have dug or built nests in sandy areas near water, where the young could quickly access shelter. In this context, the horn-like cranial projections may have played a relevant role, either in territorial displays or mating. The fossil remains of Voay robustus reveal a surprisingly wide map of its presence in Madagascar. From the heights of the central mountains, in sites such as Ampasamba-Zimba and Antsirabe, to the southwestern plains with Amposa and areas near Belosurt-Siribihina, even flooded caves like Vintany Cave in the Mikea Forest confirm its ability to inhabit semi-arid regions as long as minimal habitable conditions were met. Perhaps because of this, and unlike many Pleistocene giants, Voay robustus survived the end of the Ice Age and coexisted with humans for millennia. Its disappearance is much more recent and is linked to the arrival of Austronesian settlers in Madagascar about 2,000 years ago. Direct hunting, egg collection, and the gradual alteration of riverside habitats reduced its populations, a story already seen with the Haast's eagle and repeated with the horned crocodile. Great mako shark, or Hemipristis cera. We cannot talk about marine predators without mentioning a species of shark so voracious that it would not hesitate to resort to cannibalism if necessary. However, the most distinctive feature of the snaggletooth shark was its sharp teeth, designed by natural selection to ensure that no prey could escape its bite. Its size was such that, to imagine it, placing 3 adults end-to-end would approximate its length, about 6 meters, concentrating pure strength and lethal speed underwater. Its body mass ranged from half a ton to nearly a ton, giving it stability and power for sudden maneuvers when capturing prey. Its dentition was its signature. The upper teeth, triangular and serrated, were designed to cut flesh, while the lower teeth, narrower and curved, functioned as hooks to firmly grip the victim. This heterodont arrangement allowed it to immobilize and dismember prey of various sizes efficiently. Each tooth was well anchored, with robust roots capable of regenerating damaged pieces in just a few days, ensuring the shark was always ready to hunt. Combined with the jaw's strength, these teeth allowed it to pierce flesh, cartilage, and even small bones, leaving no prey safe. Hemipristis cera's hunting strategy relied on ambushes, using its agility and tail power to propel itself suddenly. The result was a silent approach, followed by an attack with surgical lethality in the best-case scenario. Targets could range from fast-moving fish to marine mammals, juveniles, or weakened individuals. Although its teeth were effective for grasping and slicing, it also scavenged opportunistically, feeding on freshly dead animals or floating remains in coastal waters. Fossil evidence shows bite marks on marine vertebrates, confirming it did not hesitate to exploit any available resource, expanding its dominance in the ecosystem. Its social behavior was mostly solitary, similar to its modern relative Hemipristis elongata. It did not form schools and moved individually, although small temporary groups may have occurred during reproduction. Its independence favored efficient hunting, avoiding direct competitors within its territory, and allowed it to exploit coastal areas rich in food, from shallow reefs to estuaries, adapting to varying conditions without relying on social groups. The species' end came with late Pleistocene changes. Sea level fluctuations reduced the coastal shelf by up to 90%, fragmenting key habitats and limiting hunting and refuge zones. Added competition with semi-modern sharks, especially tiger sharks, displaced some prey and restricted available niches. Together with temperature shifts and ocean currents, these factors made the survival of the snaggletooth shark unsustainable. Dire wolf or Inocean dirus. The giant terrestrial predators of the Pleistocene were the closest thing to mythological monsters that our ancestors had to contend with to survive. Many of these megapredators evolved to dominate entire biomes, either through individual prowess or sheer numbers. In this category was the formidable Inocean dirus, the great dire wolf, whose size and ferocity were the least of its prey's concerns. After all, even wolf pups did not hunt alone. Its build revealed its nature immediately. Broader, more massive, with a proportionally larger head than modern wolves, the dire wolf was designed to subdue through strength. Its skull was solid and deep, and although its brain volume was somewhat smaller proportionally, the true difference lay in the teeth. Its teeth were larger and more resistant, prepared to withstand high pressures when tearing flesh or crushing bones. In an ecosystem where every prey represented a considerable energy investment, a bite capable of crushing bone could mean the difference between feeding and going hungry. It also aided in competing for potential food sources. It was not, however, a long-distance runner. Its legs, relatively slender compared to its robust torso, suggest it was not optimized for prolonged chases like some modern wolves. Its strategy relied more on group coordination and collective takedown of large animals than individual endurance. In short, it was a predator of impact, not attrition. Its external appearance also deviated from the classic image of the northern wolf. It lacked the long, dark fur associated with extremely cold climates. Genetic analyses indicate those features developed later in other wolf populations in America through mixing with different canids. The dire wolf was outside that evolutionary exchange. In fact, its lineage was closer to jackals and African wild dogs than to the modern gray wolf. It was not a direct ancestor, but a parallel evolutionary experiment that thrived for hundreds of thousands of years. In terms of size, it reached about a meter at the shoulder and roughly 1.75 meters in body length. Its weight was around 60 kilograms. While it did not double the mass of a modern wolf, its compact build and powerful head gave it a dominant presence. Standing on its hind legs, it could exceed the height of any equine, giving perspective on its stature compared to the prey it faced. Its prey was formidable. Bison, American camels, ground sloths, and native horses were essential components of its diet. Fossil sites, especially those with abundant remains like Rancho La Brea, show a high frequency of fractured teeth. This is significant. As noted, these predators competed intensely for carcasses and didn't hesitate to bite bones to extract every resource. Scavenging also formed part of its diet, revealing opportunistic behavior in ecosystems with multiple superpredators. Pack life was key to sustaining this hunting style. The dire wolf shared space with smilodons and other large Pleistocene carnivores. Competition was constant, unforgiving of weakness, making cooperation its decisive advantage as a species. Hunting together increased success, probability, and allowed defense of the kill against intruders. Despite its adaptations, its decline came when the balance that favored it collapsed. With the end of the last glaciation, many large herbivores disappeared or drastically reduced populations. Quincana had evolved to consume such massive prey, and losing it became its greatest disadvantage. Climate changes transformed entire habitats, and human expansion added further pressure on available resources. Within a few thousand years, this predator that had dominated vast regions of the continent went extinct. Short-faced bear, or Arctodus simus. There were powerful bears before and after the Ice Age, but few reached the scale of the short-faced bear, also called the bulldog bear. Arctodus simus was not just large, it was disproportionate compared to any other ursid sharing its territory. In the open landscapes of Pleistocene North America, its upright silhouette could be seen from afar as an almost surreal figure. Often, its mere presence was enough to drive other predators away from a freshly killed prey. Weighing between 800 and 900 kilograms, an adult male easily surpassed 1.5 meters in height on all fours. When standing upright, it could reach 4 meters in length, towering over modern brown bears and forming a living mass difficult to challenge. Essentially, it was twice the height of an adult human and comparable to, or larger than, a mastodon of its time. Contrary to what its size might suggest, its limbs were not thick and compact like other robust bears. They were relatively long, indicating adaptation for efficient movement across open terrain. This did not make it clumsy. Its proportions allowed long-distance travel with lower energy expenditure than other heavy bears. Its torso was relatively short compared to limb length, and while the skeleton was strong, it was not as massive as one might expect for an animal of nearly a ton. The skull reinforced its distinctive appearance. The muzzle was short and wide, with a high arched palate giving a flattened facial profile compared to other bears. This likely improved bite mechanics, allowing efficient force transmission through the jaw. Though often associated with omnivorous habits, its jaw was adapted to process the tough meat of megafauna. Its large teeth, especially the first lower molar, were optimized for slicing firm tissue. Wear patterns indicate it was not a habitual bone crusher like hyenas, but could handle meat, tendons, and tough structures. The posterior molars were less complex, suggesting a mixed diet including plant matter and softer animal resources. Cave lion or Panthera spelaea. In the frozen Eurasia of the Pleistocene, not only mammoths and woolly rhinoceroses roamed the land. Among them moved a feline that redefined what it meant to be a top predator, about a third larger than modern African specimens, reaching heights between 1.5 and 2 meters and weighing around 400 kilograms. This was not just body length, but mass and proportions, allowing it to confront large prey in energy. Cave art from Europe provides clues about its appearance. Some depictions suggest a discrete mane or ruff around the neck, giving it a slightly different silhouette from modern African lions, possibly with thicker fur for cold resistance. All these traits allowed it to operate under extreme conditions. While the African lion hunts in warm savannas, its Pleistocene relative patrolled cold steppes and open tundras. In these temperate settings, European bison were likely frequent targets, not for ease, but for availability and energy return. Its large mass conserved heat but required significant energy, making the capture of large prey essential. Behaviorally, many researchers propose dynamics similar to modern lions, implying some coordination and potential group hunting, especially for large prey. Collective action increased hunting success against animals capable of seriously injuring a lone predator and reduced energy expenditure during the hunt. Although numerous skeletal remains have been found in Europe. Giant Australian snake, or Wonambi narracortensis. Megapredators were not limited to massive carnivorous mammals. Australia also harbored terrestrial reptiles that posed serious threats to herbivores. One such predator was a descendant of the prehistoric giant snakes of the Madtsoiidae family. Wonambi narracortensis, slithering across the southern Australian plains during the Ice Age. Skull fossils, with jaws reaching about 16 centimeters in length, suggest the snake exceeded 5 meters in total length, weighing around 50 kilograms. While not enormous, compared to the largest modern snakes, it was sizable enough to have a clear advantage over medium-sized prey. The fossil record is limited, but evidence points to a long, muscular body specialized for constriction. Unlike many modern snakes capable of extreme jaw expansion, Wonambi lacked a macrostomate skull. Its upper jaw bones could not move as widely as in contemporary pythons and boas. Instead of relying on mouth expansion to swallow large prey, it used muscular strength to subdue them. The mid-body vertebrae had tall neural spines reminiscent of the South American anaconda, reflecting a feeding strategy focused on sustained constriction to immobilize and crush prey. Its hunting method was direct: ambush, bite, and hold with teeth designed to prevent escape during the first critical seconds, then wrap progressively around the prey until immobilized, crushing bones and cartilage. Due to jaw size, its diet likely focused on animals about the size of its head. No fossilized gut contents have confirmed its exact diet, but its physical build indicates it could prey on medium-sized marsupials and juvenile megafauna. Its inner ear and vertebral structure suggest primarily terrestrial behavior, with occasional use of water for ambush. Wonambi was likely solitary, with activity concentrated at night or cooler hours. Fossil evidence shows no adaptations for digging or a strongly aquatic lifestyle. It was an opportunistic terrestrial hunter adapted to southern Australian ecosystems, which alternated between wet periods and increasing aridity, a flexibility that gave it an advantage as a predator. Its stealth and unassuming appearance may have rendered it nearly invisible to other carnivores. Fossils from Narracort caves indicate it shared territory with the marsupial lion, While there is no direct evidence of encounters, overlapping ranges suggest competition for similar resources. Climate ultimately tipped the balance. About 70,000 years ago, southern Australia underwent progressive aridification. Wetlands and watercourses shrank, directly reducing habitats suitable for ambush and refuge. Although Wonambi may have survived longer than northern Madsoids due to semi-aquatic tolerance, intensifying drought cycles fragmented its refuges, making survival increasingly untenable by the end of the Ice Age. Saber-toothed tiger, or Smilodon. Finally, no discussion of Pleistocene predators is complete without the iconic Smilodon, a visual symbol of the Ice Age in the Americas. The genus comprises 3 species: gracilis, fetalis, and populator, each dominating different landscapes long before the modern concept of America existed. Popular culture often likens them to modern tigers because of their saber-like canines, but they belong to Macerodontinae, a distinct lineage of specialized felines with no direct living descendants. Their bodies were not sleek like modern cheetahs. Rather, they were concentrated powerhouses. Short torsos, broad rib cages, and disproportionately strong forelimbs reflected adaptations for brute strength. Shoulders and necks were reinforced to withstand tension during prey struggles. Their jaws could open to nearly 90 degrees, extraordinary among felines, allowing full use of their upper canines. Size varied across species. Smilodon populator exceeded 400 kilograms and could reach 1.8 meters at the shoulder. Canines, up to 15 centimeters long, were not for crushing bone like hyenas. Instead, they were curved blades optimized for deep cuts. One hypothesis suggests prey was first brought down using forelimb force, pinned to the ground, and then the canines inserted in the neck to sever vessels or compromise breathing. Another proposes they could be used to open the abdomen and accelerate death via blood loss. Both strategies align with their wide gape. However, this specialization came with trade-offs. To allow such an opening, jaw-closing muscles could not generate the bite force of lions or tigers. Smilodon relied on body stability and precision rather than raw bite power. Its long, narrow canines were prone to fracture if the strike was misjudged, or prey struggled violently. Damage to these teeth could severely hinder hunting ability. Social behavior remains debated. Some evidence suggests cooperative hunting based on fossil abundance, but territoriality likely extended to conspecifics. Definitive proof of lion-like social structures is lacking. What is clear is their dependence on American megafauna. Bison, robust camelids, and proboscideans were key dietary components. The arrival of humans and post-glacial ecological changes pressured Smilodon populations. Their evolutionary strategy, focusing on strength, control, and surgical precision, was ultimately compromised by environmental shifts, leading to the extinction of one of the most distinctive carnivores of Pleistocene America.